The mysterious signal. The Galactic Council had seen many things over the centuries, but nothing like this. A strange signal had come through their most secure channels, and it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't a warning, a distress call, or a message from an ally. It was simply a strange, cryptic message that sent a chill through the council chambers. The message read, "The Earth's battleships are coming. Be prepared." At first, the members of the Galactic Council laughed. Earth, a planet so far behind the rest of the galaxy in technology, was hardly a threat. For centuries, the Council had ignored Earth, considering it a small, unimportant planet that was still stuck in the past. The most advanced thing humans had were their primitive rockets, and they were no match for the ancient, highly advanced fleets that roamed the stars. How could a planet so weak pose any danger? But the message kept repeating, echoing through the communication channels. Something about the message felt different, unsettling. It was as if the very sound of the message itself was a warning, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. On the Council's main planet, the leaders gathered in their grand hall. The room was filled with beings from different worlds, each with their own cultures and technology, but all united by one goal: to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. But this time, they were worried. "I still don't understand," said Grand Admiral Vorn, the leader of the mighty Aldrians. His voice rumbled like distant thunder as he adjusted his massive, ceremonial armor. "This message, it must be a mistake. Earth cannot possibly pose a threat. The humans are primitive. Their most advanced weapon is a metal capsule that shoots into space. Hardly something to fear." "But why keep sending this message?" asked Sara, a mysterious being from the distant planet Veloria. Her glowing, transparent body shimmered under the light. "And why does it feel wrong? I studied the signal, and it's not like anything we've ever encountered." Another member of the council, Zeknoth, the leader of the Tarkari, a race of cold-blooded hunters, spoke up. "What if it's not a mistake? What if they've discovered something new? We cannot ignore it, even if it seems ridiculous. We need to investigate." The council debated for hours, but in the end, they decided to send a small fleet to investigate. They couldn't risk letting a threat, no matter how unlikely, go unchecked. As the fleet departed, many of the council members exchanged uneasy glances. They were not worried, at least not yet. Earth was still an insignificant world, and the fleet they had sent would easily handle any situation. As the ships moved closer to Earth's solar system, they didn't notice anything unusual. The Earth's sun, a small, unremarkable star, warmed the system. The planets moved in their usual orbits, and the only thing out of place was the sudden appearance of several ships, sitting silently near Earth's moon. These ships were massive, easily 5 times the size of the largest ships in the Galactic fleet, and they looked nothing like any other ship the Council had ever seen. The fleet commander, Captain Joran of the Aldrian fleet, was the first to voice his concern. "What are those ships? I've never seen anything like them before." "They're human-made," said Sara, her voice tight with tension. "We've studied their technology from a distance, but these ships, they are unlike anything Earth has ever created. Are we sure they're human?" Captain Joran's eyes narrowed. He had seen battleships before, many times, in fact, but this was different. The ships from Earth were not sleek or elegant. They were bulky, with metal surfaces that seemed to absorb the light around them, making them appear almost invisible against the backdrop of space. Their design was crude compared to the polished ships of the Council, but they gave off a strange, unsettling feeling. As the fleet moved closer, they received a transmission, this time from the humans themselves. The voice on the other side was calm, almost too calm, given the situation. "This is Earth. You've received our message. The battleships are now online. Stand by." The transmission ended abruptly, and at that moment, something changed. The silence of space was broken by a low hum, and the Earth ships began to move. Slowly, at first, but then faster, as if they were aware of the Council's fleet. Without warning, the human ships activated their weapons. A sudden flash of bright light erupted from one of the ships, and the first alien warship disintegrated in a blinding explosion. "What in the stars?" shouted Captain Joran. They just destroyed one of our ships with a single shot." "Impossible." The Council fleet scrambled to react. They fired their weapons, but the human ships moved with astonishing speed and precision. Their weaponry was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It wasn't advanced in the way their own technology was, but it was deadly. The human ships fired beams of energy that cut through the Council fleet's shields as if they weren't even there. The elder races were stunned. For the first time in centuries, they felt something they had never felt before. Fear. The humans were not the weak, unimportant species they had once thought. They were something new, something dangerous. As the last few ships of the Council fleet fell back into retreat, Captain Joran tried to make sense of what had just happened. His mind raced with questions. How could Earth, a planet so far behind the rest of the galaxy, have created ships like this? What were these battleships made of? And most importantly, what did the humans want? The mysterious signal, the one the Council had dismissed, had been right all along. Earth was not weak. The battleships had come, and they were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Council now knew that Earth was no longer a planet to be ignored. It was a planet to be feared. And so, the first chapter in the Galactic showdown had begun. What came next would change the galaxy forever. The elder races had no idea what they were about to face, but they would soon find out. Earth's secret weapon. The news of Earth's sudden rise to power spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. The elder races were reeling from the unexpected attack. No one could have predicted that a planet once considered nothing more than a backwater world would possess such terrifying technology. It was not just the sheer power of Earth's battleships that shocked them, but the mystery behind them. In the Galactic Council's meeting hall, leaders of the ancient species gathered in a rare emergency session. The once calm atmosphere was now tense, as beings from different worlds exchanged uneasy glances. There was no longer any doubt. Earth had become a threat. "We need answers," declared Vorn, the Aldrian Grand Admiral, his voice low and serious. "The humans must have something we don't know about. How could they build such machines? What is their source of power?" "All we know is that they're human-made," replied Xara, her glowing body flickering slightly in the tense air. "But the ships, they're unlike anything we've ever seen. Their technology doesn't match anything we've encountered in this galaxy." "I have been studying the wreckage from the battle," Zeknoth, the Tarkari leader, said quietly. His cold, reptilian eyes flickered with suspicion. "We thought Earth was primitive, but now, I believe their battleships are built from something ancient, something far older than any of us realize." As the Council discussed the mystery behind Earth's battleships, the humans themselves were preparing for the next phase of their plans. Deep within Earth's military headquarters, Commander Olivia Hayes and her top officers gathered around a holographic display, reviewing the battle footage and analyzing their ship's performance. "What we just witnessed was only the beginning," Hayes said, her voice steady. "The elder races had no idea what they were up against, but now, they know we're not the weak species they once thought us to be." Her officers nodded, each of them trying to grasp the enormity of what was happening. The whole galaxy was watching Earth now, and no one knew what would happen next. "We need to be ready for what's coming," Hayes continued. "The Council won't sit back and let us continue unchallenged. We have no choice but to escalate. The battleships are ready, but it's time we show them the real power we've been hiding." Her second-in-command, Colonel Richard Steele, stepped forward, a stern look on his face. "But where did we even get this power?" "The battleships. They don't come from our own development. We had to rely on something much older." Commander Hayes turned to him, her expression hardening. "That's what I intend to find out. It's time we uncover the truth behind these ships and their origin. Unbeknownst to the Galactic Council, Earth's technology wasn't entirely human-made. It came from a long-forgotten civilization that had once ruled over a vast empire. An empire that had fallen long before humans even discovered fire. But in the ruins of that ancient civilization, buried deep beneath the surface of the Earth, they had left something behind. Something powerful. Humanity had stumbled upon it by accident, decades ago, when they began drilling into the Earth's crust for resources. What they discovered was an ancient, almost mystical technology, hidden away from the rest of the galaxy for eons. The battleships were powered by this long-lost technology, and as humanity began to unlock its secrets, they realized they had gained access to a power that could reshape the galaxy. Back in the council chambers, panic was beginning to set in. The elder races had always believed themselves to be the true rulers of the galaxy. For millennia, they had controlled the flow of technology and the balance of power. But now, Earth had upset that balance. "We've underestimated them," Vorn said, pacing angrily. "The humans have something we don't. They have knowledge of something ancient, something far older than any of us. We must strike before they can unleash their full potential." Zeknoth growled, his voice cold with anger. "This is no longer about their ships. We need to erase Earth before it becomes too powerful to stop." Zara, however, remained calm. "You're forgetting something. If we attack Earth, we will provoke them. We don't know the full extent of their capabilities. They might have more hidden weapons, and we may not be able to stop them." The debate raged on, but deep within Earth's command center, Hayes and her team were working tirelessly to understand the true scope of their new power. They were certain the elder races would come for them. They had no choice but to prepare for an all-out war. "We need to activate the full fleet," Hayes said, determination in her voice. "We cannot hide from the galaxy any longer. The elders will come for us, and we have to be ready to show them just how powerful we've become." Meanwhile, the first wave of Earth's battleships, still scared from their initial encounter, began to regroup. These ships weren't just war machines. They were living, breathing entities, powered by the ancient technology buried within the Earth. And as the commanders worked on unlocking their full potential, they began to understand something that had eluded them before. These ships could do more than just fight. They could change the entire course of a battle in an instant. But even the humans didn't know everything. The technology was vast, and its true power was still a mystery. As Earth prepared to face the elder races, they knew one thing for certain. They were no longer the underdogs. The galaxy would never see them the same way again. Far above the Earth, the Council's forces were regrouping, planning their next move. But no matter what they tried, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Earth had not only survived their first attack, they had struck back with a force that no one had anticipated. The elder races could no longer ignore Earth. It was clear that humanity's secret weapon had just begun to show its true power. And the galaxy would soon learn that Earth was not a world to be taken lightly. The unseen power. The elder races were on edge. It wasn't just the fact that Earth had struck back so fiercely. No, there was something far more unsettling, something that none of the galaxy's ancient civilizations had been able to understand. Earth's battleships, with their terrifying power, were only part of the mystery. The true power lay deeper, hidden in plain sight, yet completely invisible to the galaxy's greatest minds. At the heart of Earth's military command, Commander Olivia Hayes stood in front of a massive holographic projection, her eyes scanning the data that had been collected in the aftermath of the last battle. She had hoped to learn more about the ancient technology that powered their ships, but the more they uncovered, the more she realized just how little they truly knew. "This isn't just alien technology," she said softly, almost to herself. "It's something else, something older, much older." Her team of scientists and engineers had been tirelessly working to decrypt the remaining fragments of data that had been recovered from the wreckage of the battleships. What they were discovering sent chills down their spines. The ships weren't simply machines. They were living, evolving organisms. The power that flowed through them wasn't just from advanced technology. It was something biological, something that couldn't be explained by science alone. The more they tried to understand it, the less they seemed to know. "We're dealing with something that predates the first civilizations," said Dr. Evelyn Harris, the lead scientist on the project. "This technology, it's like it was designed to evolve, to adapt. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered." The implications were staggering. Not only had humanity discovered a source of power that had been lost to the galaxy for eons, but they had unwittingly unlocked something that could change the very fabric of existence. If they could harness the full potential of these ships, they could control far more than just space battles. They could control time, energy, even the very laws of physics themselves. But there was a problem. The ships, while powerful, were unpredictable. They responded to their human pilots, but they didn't always do what was expected. The commands given by humans seemed to merge with the ship's own consciousness, creating strange, unexpected results. It was as if the ships had a mind of their own. And not just any mind, but one that was far older and wiser than humanity could comprehend. "We need to learn how to control this power," Hayes said, her voice firm. "If we don't, we risk losing everything." Meanwhile, the elder races had taken drastic steps. The once certain leaders now faced a terrifying uncertainty. They had never imagined that a species as young as humanity could challenge their rule. But Earth's battleships were more than just a fleet. They were a symbol, an indication that something much greater than Earth itself was at play. In the heart of the Galactic Council's headquarters, the ancient beings gathered again. This time, there was no debate. The fear was palpable, hanging in the air like an invisible fog. "We must act now," Vorn, the Aldrian Grand Admiral, stated with urgency. "We have waited too long. Earth is not just a threat to our dominance. It is a threat to the very order of the galaxy. If we allow them to continue unchallenged, there will be no stopping them." Zara, the glowing being from the Zarvith race, looked around the room, her expression grave. "I agree. We must eliminate this new power before it becomes something we can't control. But there's something we need to understand first. If these ships are what we think they are, they might not be just a weapon. They could be the key to something much more dangerous." Zeknoth, the Tarkari leader, his reptilian eyes narrowing, added, "If we destroy Earth, we could unleash something worse. These ships might hold a power that none of us can fathom. I believe the humans themselves don't fully understand what they have, and that makes them even more dangerous." The debate grew heated, but there was one thing that everyone agreed on. Earth had to be stopped. It was no longer just about power or territory. This was about survival. If humanity's battleships were left unchecked, the elder races feared they would be faced with an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. But as the Council strategized, they failed to realize that Earth wasn't the only one watching. Far beyond the known galaxy, in the unexplored depths of space, another force was stirring. This was an ancient power, older than the elder races themselves. It had been waiting, watching, biding its time. And it had taken notice of Earth's unexpected rise. On Earth's side, Commander Hayes knew that they were in a race against time. The elder races would come for them, that much was certain. But the deeper mystery was still unraveling. Humanity was only beginning to understand the true potential of the battleships, and in doing so, they were awakening something ancient, a power that had been dormant for millennia. "We need more time," Hayes said, her mind racing. "We need to find a way to tap into this power before the elders find us. But what if? What if we're not the only ones who have noticed?" The truth was, the battleships weren't the only legacy of the ancient civilization buried beneath the surface of Earth. There were other relics, other technologies, hidden across the planet. And now those relics were beginning to stir. For the first time in their history, the elder races were facing not just a powerful enemy, but a new mystery, one that could unravel the very foundations of their understanding of the galaxy. And Earth, once seen as insignificant, had just become the focal point of a galactic game that no one fully understood. As Earth's battleships powered up for the next conflict, the galaxy held its breath. The war was no longer just about territory or dominance. It was about a new power, one that would change everything. And it was only just beginning. The relic awakens. The calm before the storm was always the most dangerous time. It was a time of uncertainty, a time when everyone was waiting for something to happen, but no one was sure when or how. For the elder races, it was a time of fear. Their galaxy, once ruled by ancient powers and civilizations, was now facing an unknown threat that no one could fully comprehend. Far from the tense corridors of the Galactic Council's headquarters, Earth's military command center was a hive of activity. Commander Olivia Hayes, standing in front of a massive screen filled with data, didn't look as worried as she should have. She had always been focused, always composed, but even she could feel the weight of the coming conflict. The elder races were preparing to strike. They had no choice. They were terrified of what Earth had unleashed, and they were coming for it, for humanity. But Hayes had a secret, a growing realization that the battleships they had once thought to be their greatest weapon might just be the beginning. The deeper they dug into the remnants of the ancient technology, the more they discovered. What they had found on Earth was not just a tool of war, it was a key to something much more powerful, something far beyond the control of even the elder races. The ships, as terrifying as they were, had begun to change. Their evolution, which had once been a simple matter of upgrading their power systems and weaponry, was now becoming something else. The ships were becoming conscious, and not in the way the humans had imagined. They were becoming something entirely new, a hybrid of machine and something far older. Something that hummed with a power humanity could scarcely understand. Commander Hayes, Dr. Evelyn Harris called, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and fear. "You need to see this." Hayes walked over to the lab, where Harris and her team had been working on a new discovery. The holographic screens flickered as they displayed strange, almost unreadable symbols, ancient writings that seemed to pulse with energy. The scientists had found more fragments of data from the battleships, and what they uncovered was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. This is it," Harris said, her voice trembling. "We've decoded a sequence that matches what we found in the ancient ruins. The ships, they're not just responding to human commands. They're interpreting them. And they're evolving." Hayes stared at the screen, trying to understand what she was seeing. The symbols were unlike anything she had ever encountered. They seemed to shift and change as if they were alive, as if the very data itself had a purpose. "So what does that mean?" she asked, her voice tense with anticipation. "It means we've only scratched the surface," Harris replied. "The ships aren't just machines anymore. They're part of something much larger. The technology we found on Earth, it's not just alien. It's ancient, older than the elders. And it's not just technology, it's a force. The living, breathing power. And the battleships are tapping into it." For a long moment, Hayes said nothing. The weight of Harris's words hung heavily in the air. The Earth's battleships weren't just the ultimate weapons. They were the key to something far beyond war. Something that could change the very fabric of the galaxy. The realization struck Hayes like a thunderclap. The elder races weren't just afraid of Earth's power. They were terrified of what humanity had uncovered. And now, with the ships evolving and gaining intelligence, the balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. Humanity was no longer just a fledgling species on the edge of the galaxy. They were becoming something else, a force that could not only defend their home, but reshape the universe itself. But the true horror of it all was still unknown. The ships, despite their intelligence, were unpredictable. Their evolution was not a process that could be controlled. And if the elder races managed to reach Earth first, the consequences would be devastating. Back at the Galactic Council, Leaders of the ancient species met once more. The mood was grim. No one spoke of Earth's battleships anymore. They didn't need to. They knew what was at stake. "We failed," Vorn, the Aldrian Grand Admiral, said in a rare moment of vulnerability. "The humans have unlocked something far beyond our understanding. The battleships are only the beginning. We can no longer underestimate them." "We're running out of time," Zeknoth, the Tarkari leader, added, his cold reptilian gaze fixed on the map of the galaxy. "Earth's forces grow stronger with each passing day. We've seen their capabilities in action, and yet they still haven't shown us the full extent of what they possess." Sara, the Zarveth representative, nodded. "We are witnessing the rise of a new power, one that threatens the very fabric of our rule. The humans have awakened something ancient, that we cannot control. We need to destroy Earth before it's too late." "But how?" Vorn asked. "We know they have powerful ships, but that's not all. We've studied them. They're evolving. We can't predict what they'll do next." There was a long silence as the council members exchanged uneasy glances. The stakes had never been higher. The galaxy's very existence hung in the balance, and the elder races were no closer to understanding what Earth had unleashed. Meanwhile, on Earth, Hayes stood at the forefront of the military's plans. She knew the galaxy was closing in, but she also knew one thing. Humanity's greatest strength lay in its unpredictability. The elder races thought they could defeat them with sheer force, but Earth had something they didn't: the knowledge of an ancient power and the will to unlock it. "We're not done yet," Hayes said, her voice filled with determination. "We're just getting started." The galaxy, unaware of the full scope of humanity's power, would soon learn just how dangerous the Earth was. The relics of an ancient civilization were awakening, and with them, a new era was about to begin. The storm was coming, and when it hit, no one would be safe. The first strike. The galaxy was on the edge. Every system, every planet, every race was watching, waiting. And in the center of it all, Earth stood tall, a beacon of humanity's defiance and unyielding spirit. Commander Olivia Hayes felt the weight of her responsibility like never before. As the elder races gathered their forces, humanity was preparing for the battle of their lives. The Earth fleet had never been stronger, but they still weren't ready. Not truly. Hayes knew this. She knew that even though their battleships had gained unimaginable power, there was no way to fully anticipate what the galaxy's ancient empires might throw at them. The elder races were not just powerful. They were ruthless, experienced, and cunning. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched civilizations burn. And yet, they had never faced anything like Earth. Hayes stood in the heart of the command center, the hum of technology filling the air. Every screen, every console, was alive with data. Reports came in from every corner of the galaxy, each one telling the same story. The elder races were assembling their fleets. Ships of unimaginable size and power were moving toward Earth's system, each one a harbinger of war. The time for diplomacy had ended. There would be no negotiations. Only one side would emerge from this conflict standing. She turned to her officers, each one as focused and determined as she was. "We've trained for this moment," Hayes said, her voice steady, but filled with the resolve of someone who knew the cost of failure. "We've unlocked a power no one can understand, but it's not enough to just have the power. We have to use it, and we have to win." The fleet of Earth's battleships, massive, sentient warships, waited just beyond the outer reaches of their solar system, hidden in the shadows of distant moons and asteroid belts. They were more than just ships now. They were alive. They were evolving, adapting, and responding to their pilots in ways that the humans didn't yet fully comprehend. But one thing was clear: these ships were Earth's only hope. "Commander," Dr. Harris said, her voice filled with urgency, "the elders are about to make their move. we're detecting a massive fleet emerging from the Veil Nebula. It's the Aldrian fleet. They've brought everything they've got." Hayes' heart raced. The Aldrians were one of the oldest and most powerful of the Elder races. Their ships were equipped with technology that Earth couldn't even begin to understand. Their tactics were legendary. If they could break through Earth's defenses, the rest of the galaxy would follow. The balance of power would shift forever. "We need to hit them first," Hayes said, her decision cutting through the tension like a knife. "Deploy the fleet." Her orders were swift and unyielding, and within moments, Earth's battleships began to move, silent and lethal. Each ship was an extension of its pilot's will, responding to commands before they were even spoken. As they sped toward the incoming fleet, Hayes couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. The Elder races had underestimated them at every turn, and they were about to make the same mistake again. The first strike came without warning. The massive Aldrian fleet, with its sleek, gleaming ships, emerged from the nebula like a wall of stars. Their weapons powered up, ready to obliterate anything in their path. But they hadn't anticipated the full fury of Earth's counterattack. The battleships moved as one, coordinated and precise, but with a raw, chaotic power that only Earth could possess. They didn't follow the expected protocols or predictable strategies. They fought like humans did, fierce, unpredictable, and relentless. The first salvo of energy bolts from Earth's ships lit up the black void, tearing through the incoming Aldrian warships with terrifying precision. The alien fleet's shields buckled under the pressure, their ships unable to withstand the sheer force of the human attack. In an instant, the first Aldrian warship was destroyed, its debris scattering in every direction. "What did I tell you?" Hayes muttered to herself, a slight smile tugging at her lips. "This is what we're capable of." But the Aldrians weren't so easily defeated. They retaliated with a ferocity that shocked even the most hardened of Earth's commanders. Waves of energy blasts rocketed through space, some hitting their mark, others narrowly missing. The battleships of Earth, now fully synchronized with their pilots, dodged and weaved, responding to the attacks faster than their enemies could track. The battle raged on, a deadly dance of fire and steel, energy and destruction. It was as if time itself slowed as each side tried to outmaneuver the other. But despite their powerful ships, the Aldrians were beginning to falter. They had expected to crush Earth's fleet with little effort, but humanity had brought something they hadn't counted on: unpredictability. The command center buzzed with activity as Hayes and her team tracked the battle's progress. The Aldrians were pulling back, forced to rethink their strategy. They had underestimated humanity's power, its resolve, and the true potential of Earth's battleships. The ships weren't just fighting machines. They were a reflection of the human spirit itself. But as Hayes watched the unfolding battle, something else caught her attention. Far in the distance, beyond the Aldrian fleet, she detected another signal, one that didn't match anything from the known Elder races. It was faint, almost invisible, but it was growing stronger by the second. "What's that?" Hayes asked, narrowing her eyes. "What's coming?" Dr. Harris quickly pulled up a new set of readings. Her face turned pale. "Commander, this isn't from any of the Elder fleets. This is something entirely different. Something ancient." A chill ran down Hayes' spine as the unknown signal continued to grow stronger. The battle with the Aldrians was far from over, but now it seemed like a new force had entered the fray, one that no one had expected. Earth's fight for survival was just beginning. And the worst part, no one knew who or what this new force was. As the first strike came to an end and the battlefield fell into a brief, uneasy silence, Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and Earth had just stepped into the center of a storm that threatened to consume everything. The battle was won, but the war, true war, was only just beginning. And whatever was coming, it wasn't just an Elder race. It was something much worse. The unseen enemy. The aftermath of the battle left the space around Earth's fleet eerily still. The remnants of the Aldrian fleet drifted in space, their once glorious ships now broken and shattered. Yet, despite their victory, Commander Olivia Hayes couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest. The Aldrians had been powerful, but they were nothing compared to what was now looming on the horizon. In the silence of the command center, the officers worked quickly to assess the damage. Despite their success, there was a clear sense of tension. Everyone was on edge, and for good reason. The mysterious signal that had appeared moments after the battle began was still haunting them. It had been faint at first, like a whisper lost in the vastness of space, but now it was undeniable. Whatever it was out there, and it was coming closer. Commander Hayes, Dr. Harris's voice broke through the silence, her tone unusually tense. I've been analyzing the signal. It's not like anything we've encountered before. It's older than the elder races themselves. This could be a new threat, a force we haven't even begun to understand. Hayes' mind raced. Earth had just survived the first wave of an elder race assault, and now this new force was entering the picture. She had expected retaliation, but she had never anticipated something like this. The unknown signal sent chills down her spine. If this new enemy was more advanced or powerful than the Aldrians, the galaxy could be facing an entirely different kind of war. Is there any way to know who or what this is? Hayes asked, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the growing fear gnawing at her. Dr. Harris hesitated, staring at the screens as the signal grew stronger. Not yet. The patterns don't match any known species, but the technology, the frequency, it's almost like it's watching us. The thought made Hayes' skin crawl. It was as if someone, or something, was studying them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. How long until it reaches us? Hayes asked, her mind already calculating their next move. The fleet needed time to recover, to regroup. But if this unknown enemy arrived before then, Earth might be in even worse trouble than before. Harris ran her fingers across the console, her face pale as she calculated. The signal is getting stronger every minute. It's moving fast, but it's not just one ship. It's a fleet, massive, and it's on a direct course for Earth. The weight of the words hung in the air. A fleet, an unknown fleet, coming directly toward Earth. Shut down all unnecessary systems, Hayes ordered, her mind spinning. I want full scans. We need to know everything we can about this fleet before it arrives. We can't afford any surprises. As the crew scrambled to follow her orders, Hayes stared out the viewport. The cold, empty expanse of space seemed more threatening than ever. The Aldrians were defeated, but the true enemy was yet to be revealed. Meanwhile, Earth's battleships, still on high alert, waited. Some were undergoing repairs after the clash with the Aldrian fleet, but most were ready for whatever was coming next. The ships, now more than just military vessels, had become symbols of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Each battleship was alive with the energy of its human pilot, a bond forged in the heat of battle. They were more than machines. They were humanity's last line of defense. But the unknown enemy posed a challenge that none of them could have predicted. Hours passed as the fleet continued to track the mysterious signal. The tension grew with every passing minute, each officer aware of the importance of the task at hand. No one spoke much. There was little to say when the enemy's arrival was so uncertain. Every scan, every report came back the same. Nothing concrete, no new information, just the signal, growing louder, closer, and more ominous with each moment. Then, without warning, the signal abruptly stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. The crew exchanged worried glances, unsure of what had just happened. The signal, which had been so clear and present, was now gone. It felt like a trick, a dangerous lull before the storm. What just happened? Hayes demanded. Her eyes were sharp, her senses heightened. She knew something wasn't right. Wait, the signal, Dr. Harris said, squinting at her console. It's It's not gone. It's cloaked. Somehow. The realization hit them all like a thunderclap. The enemy had been hiding. They had been watching Earth, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, they were getting closer. The silence stretched on. Time seemed to freeze as the fleet held its breath. A few minutes later, a new reading appeared on the monitors, one that no one had expected. A massive object appeared on the edge of the system, emerging from behind the moon, its dark form almost invisible against the backdrop of space. It was colossal, unlike anything the humans had seen before. There were no signs of weaponry, at least none visible, but the sheer size of the object was terrifying. It was as if the object was a shadow, blending into the very fabric of space itself. "What is that?" Hayes breathed, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. She had seen warships before, massive ships that could lay waste to entire fleets, but this was something else. This wasn't just a ship, it was an omen. Dr. Harris looked up from her console, her face ashen. It's not alone. There are more of them. A whole fleet. A fleet of shadows, waiting to strike. The first strike was like a bolt of lightning, splitting the silence. But it wasn't a weapon, it was a signal. An ultimatum. The unknown fleet had arrived, and they were ready to speak. But the question was, what did they want? Hayes stood at the center of the command deck, her hands clenched into fists. The battle for Earth was far from over. In fact, it had just begun. And this new enemy, the one they couldn't see, the one they couldn't understand, was more terrifying than anything the galaxy had ever known. Humanity had just awakened a force it couldn't fully comprehend. The question was, would they survive it? The ultimate test. The fleet was now in full battle formation, but the feeling of anticipation and fear hung thick in the air. The unknown fleet, massive and shadowy, loomed ominously on the outskirts of Earth's face. Commander Olivia Hayes paced in the command center, her mind racing with possibilities. They had prepared for the Aldrians, and while they had been a formidable opponent, this new enemy was unlike anything humanity had faced before. The ships were cloaked, their presence barely perceptible to the sensors. They seemed to move with purpose, each ship a ghost within the dark void of space. Even their first signal, a low hum that sent chills down the spine of every officer, seemed like a warning. What were they waiting for? "Commander," Dr. Harris's voice broke through Hayes' thoughts. "We've intercepted a transmission from the unknown fleet. It's not a language. It's a series of signals. It's like they're testing us." Testing, Hayes thought, frowning. But testing for what? Earth had already proven its strength by surviving the Aldrian attack. They had fought and won, against all odds. Why would this new enemy be testing them? Before she could voice her thoughts, the screen before them flickered to life. A dark shape appeared in the center of the display. It was hard to make out the details, but there was a clear sense of dread that accompanied its appearance. The shape seemed to pulse with energy, as though alive, its presence more overwhelming than any fleet they had encountered. "It's communicating," Harris said quietly, "but not in a way we understand. It's asking us to choose." Hayes's heart skipped a beat. "Choose," she repeated, her voice tight. "Choose what?" Harris was silent for a moment before speaking again. "It's offering us two paths. One is surrender. The other is destruction." A shiver ran down Hayes' spine. Surrender. Humanity had never been one to bow before threats, especially not after everything they had already faced. The idea of surrendering to a fleet they couldn't even comprehend was unthinkable. "Destruction?" Hayes asked, her voice low, her mind grasping for clarity. "What does that mean?" "It could mean they'll wipe us out," Harris said, her voice trembling. "But it might also mean something else. We don't know what they want yet. We don't know what they're capable of." The room fell silent, the weight of the decision pressing down on everyone in the room. The tension was unbearable. Earth had survived by its wits, by its sheer determination, But now they were facing a challenge that couldn't be measured in firepower alone. This enemy, this new force, wasn't just about battles and weapons. It was a test of everything humanity had ever believed in. "We need to respond," Hayes said, her voice firm, even though uncertainty gnawed at her insides. "We can't just wait for them to act. We need to show them that humanity will not bend to threats. We've fought for this planet, for our future, and we will continue to fight." The crew exchanged wary glances. Hayes could feel the weight of their uncertainty, but she also saw something else in their eyes. There was a fire, a flicker of defiance. The spirit of humanity was alive in them, just as it had been alive in their ancestors. No matter what happened next, they would not go quietly into the dark. As Hayes prepared to make the call, the signal intensified, filling the room with a harsh, vibrating hum. The unknown fleet was preparing to do something, an action, or maybe a final ultimatum. The silence was suddenly deafening, and Hayes knew that whatever happened next would change everything. "Commander, we're receiving another message," Dr. Harris said, her voice tight. "It's not just a transmission. It's a direct assault on our systems." "What kind of assault?" Hayes demanded, moving swiftly to her console. She wasn't sure what she was expecting, but the sight that greeted her was worse than she could have imagined. The screens were flashing with unreadable codes, systems flickering in and out of operation. It was as if the very fabric of their fleet was being unraveled, pulled apart by unseen forces. The enemy's technology was advanced beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. This wasn't just an attack. It was a disruption of their very essence. "This is it," Hayes said, her voice cold as ice. "They're testing us in the most brutal way possible." The room was in chaos as officers scrambled to regain control, but Hayes knew that the situation was dire. Earth's fleet was strong, but this was something beyond strength. The unknown enemy wasn't just fighting. They were probing, studying, and dismantling Earth's defenses piece by piece. "We need to fight back," Hayes said, her voice resolute. "Prepare the fleet for countermeasures. We cannot let them break us down." As the crew scrambled to implement the countermeasures, Hayes's thoughts raced. This was no longer just a battle for Earth's survival. It was a battle for humanity's place in the galaxy. Would they survive this trial, or would this unknown force erase everything humanity had worked so hard to achieve? But even as Earth's fleet prepared for the worst, Hayes couldn't help but feel a nagging thought in the back of her mind. This enemy, they weren't just after Earth. They were after something much bigger, something that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. The question was, what would happen when they finally revealed their true intentions? The unknown enemy was closing in, their presence more overwhelming than ever before. Hayes knew that Earth's fate, and the fate of countless others in the galaxy, rested on the edge of a knife. Every move counted. Every choice could mean the difference between life and destruction. The fleet had one final test to face, and this time, they weren't sure they'd survive. The rise of the Galactic Empire. The galaxy was vast, and in its endless reaches, one name echoed across countless star systems: the Galactic Empire. This empire was born from the ashes of countless wars and conflicts, built upon the foundation of fear and control. It spread like wildfire, devouring planets one by one, until it stood as the most powerful force in the galaxy. No planet was too distant, no star system too isolated to escape its grasp. The empire ruled with an iron fist, its fleet unmatched in size and strength. Every corner of the universe knew its power, and no one dared to challenge it. For centuries, the empire's grip on the galaxy was unshakable. Planets that resisted were crushed under the weight of the empire's military might. Citizens lived in constant fear, their lives controlled by ruthless governors and military commanders. Rebellions were crushed before they even began. The empire was a machine, efficient, merciless, and unstoppable. Yet even in such an oppressive regime, whispers of change began to spread. From the farthest corners of the galaxy, rumors began to surface. Some said the Empire had grown complacent. Its power, once a symbol of absolute dominance, had begun to breed arrogance. The whispers spoke of a time when something would rise up to challenge the Empire's rule. But these were only rumors, faint voices in the dark, quickly silenced by the Empire's vast intelligence network. But the Empire's leaders, drunk on their power, paid little attention to these whispers. They believed their dominance was eternal. The thought that any force could challenge their reign seemed laughable to them. How could a single planet, isolated and insignificant, dare to defy them? Earth, a planet in a remote corner of the galaxy, was known to the Empire, but only in passing. It was a small world, caught in the web of the Empire's far-reaching grasp. Its inhabitants were considered primitive by galactic standards, too divided, too undeveloped to pose any real threat. Earth had no grand fleet, no powerful weapons, nothing that could stand against the mighty warships of the Empire. It was a planet that could be easily overlooked, dismissed as a backwater, even by the most ambitious Imperial commanders. But the Empire had made one fatal mistake. They underestimated the humans of Earth. While the Empire thrived on fear and control, the humans of Earth had something that no other species in the galaxy possessed: an unshakable will to survive. The people of Earth had endured countless challenges throughout their history: wars, plagues, natural disasters, and even their own self-destructive tendencies. Yet they had always come out stronger, united in the face of adversity. Unbeknownst to the Empire, Earth had been quietly preparing for a time when they would need to defend themselves. Decades of secret projects, hidden under the guise of peace and scientific exploration, had been developing humanity's own fleet, a fleet designed not to conquer the stars, but to protect the Earth from any force that might threaten its survival. Earth's leaders had seen what was happening across the galaxy: the Empire's endless expansion, the devastation of entire civilizations, the destruction of entire worlds. They knew that one day the Empire's gaze would turn toward Earth. They could not afford to wait until it was too late, so they built their fleet in secret, far from the prying eyes of the Empire. It wasn't just the technology that made Earth's fleet special. It was the humans themselves. Every person involved in the project understood what was at stake. They weren't just building machines of war. They were building a force to protect their future. And in the process, they developed something that the Empire could never anticipate: the heart and soul of humanity, a force that would fight not out of duty, but out of a fierce love for their planet and their people. Earth's fleet was small at first, hidden away in deep space, cloaked from the Empire's sensors. But it was growing, slowly and steadily, its ships designed for stealth and precision, not brute strength. The humans of Earth had learned from the Empire's own tactics how to use their enemies' arrogance against them. They knew the Empire would never expect an attack from a tiny, unremarkable planet on the edge of the galaxy, and that would be their advantage. As the Empire continued its reign of terror, the humans of Earth were ready. Their fleet, though not as large or as powerful as the Empire's, was prepared to strike when the time was right. But they would not make the first move. Earth's leaders knew they needed to wait for the Empire to show its hand, to make the mistake of underestimating them. It was only a matter of time before the Empire would learn that they had made a terrible mistake, a mistake that would cost them everything. And so, in the silence of deep space, Earth's hidden fleet waited, prepared to face the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. The stage was set. The challenge had been made. The galaxy would soon learn that there was one force it could never conquer: the will of Earth, a mysterious signal. For years, the Galactic Empire had expanded with terrifying speed, conquering planet after planet, crushing any hope of resistance. Its leaders believed that nothing could stop them. With their enormous fleets and advanced technology, they had made the galaxy bend to their will. No one could stand against the Empire. But as the Empire's forces tightened their grip on every corner of the galaxy, something strange happened. A signal, faint and nearly undetectable, emerged from a forgotten part of the galaxy, Earth's corner. It was nothing extraordinary, at least not at first, just a simple transmission that no one had paid attention to. Yet, for reasons no one could explain, it caught the attention of the Empire's intelligence network. At first, the Empire dismissed the signal. It was too weak, too unimportant to warrant any serious investigation. Earth was a remote, insignificant planet, an afterthought in the Empire's vast reach. Why waste time on a signal that could be easily ignored? But there was something about the signal that lingered in the minds of the Empire's commanders. It was too regular, too structured to be random noise. And yet it was too faint to reveal its source. The Empire's scientists began to dig deeper, trying to decode the mysterious message. The Empire had its own vast intelligence network, sleek, sophisticated, and terrifyingly efficient. They had spies everywhere, on every world, even in the most remote reaches of space. But this signal was different. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't decipher its meaning. It was a puzzle they couldn't solve. Unknown to the Empire, the signal was no accident. It had been deliberately designed. Carefully crafted by the humans of Earth, it was not a message to be decoded, but a beacon. A message to alert the galaxy to something hidden in the depths of space, Earth's hidden fleet. The humans had been watching the Empire's expansion for years. They had seen the destruction, the suffering, and the sheer cruelty that the Empire unleashed on every planet it conquered. Earth had already prepared itself. It had already built its fleet in secret, hidden far from the prying eyes of the Empire. But now, it was time to send a warning. The signal was a test, a way for Earth to gauge the Empire's reaction. Would they ignore it, as they had so many other signs of potential rebellion? Or would they investigate, and in doing so, reveal that Earth had more power than they had ever imagined? On Earth, the small group of military leaders and scientists who had been working on the secret project knew the time had come. The signal had been sent. The fleet was ready. Now, all they could do was wait. For the Galactic Empire, it was just another mystery, something to be solved. They assumed they were still the masters of the galaxy, that no one, especially a small, insignificant planet like Earth, could challenge them. But what they didn't know was that this signal marked the beginning of the end of their reign. The humans of Earth had spent years preparing for this moment. And now, they were ready to face the greatest challenge of their lives. The Empire's response would be the first test. Would they dismiss Earth as they always had? Or would they recognize the danger lurking in the darkness, waiting to strike? The waiting game had begun. Earth's hidden fleet was ready, but the Empire still hadn't realized it was under threat. Yet, the Empire's reaction. The Galactic Empire had always prided itself on its might. From the smallest skirmishes to the most massive campaigns, it had crushed any opposition with overwhelming force. There was no enemy that had stood up to them, until now. A simple, barely detectable signal from an insignificant planet was making waves across the Empire's intelligence channels, and for the first time in a long while, the Empire's high command was unsure of how to proceed. General Darvok sat in the command center of the Empire's flagship, staring at the data screen in front of him. The signal had been analyzed, filtered, and scrutinized countless times, but still, there was no breakthrough. It was as though Earth had been hiding something for years, something no one had expected. And yet, the Empire had failed to notice. "Is this really worth our attention?" asked one of the senior officers, leaning over Darvok's shoulder. "It's a faint transmission. Too weak to be from anything of importance. Perhaps it's just a malfunction in their communication system." General Darvok didn't respond immediately. He knew that dismissing this signal too quickly could mean underestimating something that could turn the tide of the war. There had been stories, whispers, of humanity's resilience and hidden strength, legends of their persistence in the face of impossible odds. He had dismissed them, thinking them mere rumors. But now, the signal was forcing him to reconsider. "We can't afford to ignore this," Darvok muttered. "We need to investigate. Prepare a scout fleet. I want eyes on Earth." Orders were given, and soon, a small fleet of reconnaissance ships was dispatched to Earth's coordinates. They moved swiftly, quietly, under the cover of deep space. The Empire's fleet was vast, but even it couldn't be everywhere at once. And Earth had always been one of the most unremarkable, low-priority planets in the galaxy. At least, that's what the Empire believed. For days, the scout ships approached Earth without incident. But as they neared the planet's orbit, something strange began to happen. Their sensors began to pick up unusual readings, massive energy signatures that didn't match anything known in the Empire's vast database. The readings were unlike anything seen before, and they were coming from Earth itself. "Impossible," one of the scout commanders whispered. "The energy levels coming from Earth, they're off the charts. No civilization on this planet could generate such power." The scout ships halted at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, and the commanders watched as the readings grew stronger. It wasn't just one source, it was multiple. A massive fleet, hidden beneath the planet's surface, was now coming to life. The scout fleet's commanders had underestimated Earth. They had thought the signal was just a minor warning or a failed distress call. But now, it was clear that Earth wasn't the weak, primitive world they had imagined. It was a sleeping giant that had quietly prepared for this moment, waiting for the right time to strike. The fleet of ships that had once been just an idea, buried in secret military bases and forgotten facilities, was now emerging. Massive warships, once thought to be nothing more than blueprints in a dusty archive, were coming to life. The Empire's sensors barely knew how to react. For a moment, the Empire's fleet was paralyzed by the sheer scale of what they were witnessing. And then, a powerful voice came through the comms, shattering the silence. "This is Admiral Cavan, of the Earth Fleet. We are ready. If you wish to continue your conquest of the galaxy, you will have to go through us. Earth will not fall to your empire." The message was clear. Earth had known of the Empire's ambitions for years. They had been preparing, building, and waiting for the day they would be forced to defend their home. The time for Earth's quiet existence was over. Now, they were ready to make their stand. The scout fleet scrambled to report back to the Empire's command, but it was too late. Earth's hidden armada was no longer a secret. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price for their arrogance. Back at the Empire's command center, General Darvok stared at the incoming transmission, his mind racing. He had always believed that no one could challenge the might of the Empire. But now, a planet that had once been written off as insignificant had thrown down a challenge he wasn't sure the Empire could ignore. The stage was set. Earth had shown its hand. And the Galactic Empire was about to face a threat unlike any they had ever encountered. The question now was simple. How would the Empire respond to the challenge of a lifetime? The Empire strikes back. The Empire's command center was buzzing with activity. Across the vast, cold expanse of space, the Empire's war machines were being mobilized. General Darvok paced back and forth in front of the holographic map that displayed Earth's defenses. His mind was racing. Earth had managed to keep its fleet hidden for years, and now they had revealed their hand. The Empire could not afford to underestimate them again. They had to act quickly. "Deploy the fleet," Darvok commanded, his voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of urgency. "I want a full assault on Earth. No more delays." A fleet of Empire warships, massive and imposing, began their journey toward Earth. Each ship was armed with enough firepower to obliterate entire planets, and they were headed to wipe out what they now saw as an unexpected threat. The Empire had conquered countless worlds, and it was inconceivable to them that Earth could even think of defying their authority. Earth's fleet, though impressive, was still just a fraction of the Empire's might. The Imperial fleet moved swiftly, their ships cutting through space like predators closing in on their prey. They knew what they had to do. This would not be a long campaign. They would overwhelm Earth's forces with their superior firepower and advanced technology. Back on Earth, Admiral Cavan was prepared for the inevitable. His eyes were fixed on the massive display screen in front of him. He could see the Imperial fleet coming into view, their massive ships swarming toward his home planet. But the calm in his expression betrayed no fear. He had seen this coming for years. "All hands, prepare for battle," Admiral Cavan ordered, his voice filled with unwavering confidence. "Today, we defend our home. This is not just about Earth. It's about standing up to the tyranny of the Empire and proving that we are no longer the weak, forgotten species they once thought us to be." His crew responded with a sharp nod. They had trained for this moment. They knew what was at stake. The Earth fleet had been carefully assembled over the years, a mix of warships, stealth vessels, and defensive platforms, each one equipped with advanced technologies that the Empire had not seen before. The fleet's true power had been hidden from the galaxy, but now it was being unleashed. As Earth's ships powered up, the hum of the engines filled the command center. It was a sound that resonated with defiance. Admiral Cavan gave the signal, and the first wave of Earth's fleet launched from their orbital bases, soaring into the blackness of space. Their formation was precise, a mixture of old and new technology, each ship complementing the others in a well-rehearsed strategy. Earth was ready, but the stakes had never been higher. On board the lead ship, the flagship Eagle's Wrath, Captain Lyra watched the incoming Imperial fleet with steely determination. "We're about to show them what Earth is made of," she said, her voice cold and calculated. "Open fire the moment we make contact. Don't let them get close." The first exchange of fire happened faster than anyone could have imagined. The Empire's ships launched their first barrage, a blinding display of lasers and missiles, but Earth's fleet was ready. The smaller, faster ships weaved through the incoming fire, using their superior maneuverability to dodge the initial attacks. At the same time, Earth's larger warships retaliated with deadly precision, their new weapon systems cutting through the enemy's ranks. It was a battle like none the Empire had ever fought. Their tactics, honed over centuries of domination, suddenly seemed outdated. Earth's ships, though smaller in number, fought with a fury and determination that stunned the Empire's commanders. General Darvok watched the battle unfold from his command ship, his face twisted in frustration. Earth's fleet was holding its ground. The initial attack had been repelled, and now the Empire's ships were taking significant damage. "This is impossible," Darvok muttered to himself. "How is it that they have this much firepower? How did they keep this hidden?" He clenched his fists in frustration. The Empire's forces were vast, but Earth's defense. The battle escalates. The battle raged on. The void of space was alive with explosions and blinding streaks of light. The Empire's massive warships, once thought to be invincible, were now facing fierce opposition from Earth's fleet. Despite the overwhelming size and firepower of the Imperial fleet, the humans fought with a raw determination that seemed to defy the odds. Admiral Cavan watched the progress of the battle from his command center. His eyes remained focused, scanning the tactical displays that filled the large screen in front of him. He was determined to keep Earth's fleet intact and force the Empire to understand that humanity would no longer bow to their oppressive rule. "We're holding them off, but we need to finish this," Cavan said, his voice calm and resolute. "Send out the second wave. Captain Lyra, prepare to engage the Empire's flagship directly." On board the Eagle's Wrath, Captain Lyra was giving orders as the ship's weapons charged for another strike. The initial surprise had given Earth a momentary advantage, but the Empire was beginning to regroup, and the fight was getting fiercer. Every ship in the Earth fleet was pushing its limits, and the pressure was mounting. "Target their weak points. Aim for their engines and weapon systems," Lyra instructed, her voice sharp and commanding. "We need to break their will. We need them to understand that they can't win." As the Eagle's Wrath advanced, Earth's smaller, stealthier ships flanked the larger Imperial warships, striking with precision. The Empire was caught off guard. The humans' tactics were unconventional, unpredictable. The constant shifts in formation made it nearly impossible for the Empire to anticipate the next move. On the Imperial side, General Darvok was pacing in frustration. His fleet had expected an easy victory, yet every attempt to crush Earth's resistance was being met with fierce defiance. Earth's technology was clearly more advanced than the Empire had anticipated, and their strategy was unlike anything they had seen in their previous conquests. "We cannot let them get any further," Darvok said, his voice filled with anger. "The humans have to be crushed. Full-scale assault. Now." A new wave of Imperial ships arrived, their dark forms blotting out the stars as they powered through space toward Earth's fleet. The battle was about to intensify, and neither side was willing to back down. Admiral Caven, observing the incoming wave, knew this was the moment that would determine the outcome. He didn't have time to second-guess himself. They had to press the attack before the Empire could regroup fully. "All ships, focus your fire on the Empire's reinforcements," Caven ordered. "Do not give them a chance to regroup. We strike now." The Earth fleet launched its next barrage, and the clash between the two sides reached a deafening crescendo. Lasers flew across the sky, striking targets with deadly accuracy. Explosions rocked the Empire's warships, sending massive debris spiraling through space. As the battle unfolded, it was clear that Earth's resilience was shaking the Empire's once unquestioned dominance. The Empire's warships, formidable as they were now struggling against the guerrilla-like tactics employed by the humans. Despite their superior numbers, the Empire's fleet was losing ships, and their once imposing command structure was beginning to fracture. On the front lines, Captain Lyra's voice rang out through the ship's speakers. "We've got their flagship in our sights, targeting their primary shield generator. Fire." The Eagle's wrath unleashed a volley of concentrated firepower. The beams hit the Imperial flagship with brutal force, causing its shields to flicker and spark. The flagship tried to retaliate, but it was clear they had underestimated Earth's determination. In a matter of moments, the flagship was forced to retreat, its defenses faltering. On the Imperial command ship, General Darvok clenched his fists as he watched the retreating flagship on his screens. "Fall back," he ordered, his voice grim. "We cannot afford to lose any more ships." As the Empire began to retreat, the Earth fleet stood strong. They had not won yet, but they had made their point clear. Earth had never been the weak, forgotten species the Empire had once thought them to be. They had proven that they would fight back, no matter the cost. Admiral Caven's voice echoed through the command center. "Victory is ours today, but the war is far from over. The Empire will return, and when they do, we will be ready." The Earth fleet, battered but unbroken, watched as the Empire's retreating ships faded into the distance. For now, Earth had won, but it was clear that the battle for freedom was only just beginning. The Empire strikes back. Despite the victory Earth's fleet had claimed, the war was far from over. The retreating Imperial ships, though wounded and diminished, were only a temporary reprieve for the people of Earth. The Galactic Empire was not a force that would simply accept defeat. Their anger would fuel their next moves, and Earth had made itself their primary target. Admiral Caven sat at the helm of his ship, the Sentinel staring at the blinking tactical readouts on his command panel. Though the Earth fleet had secured an undeniable win, he knew that the Empire would not rest until they crushed humanity's resistance. The next phase of the battle would require everything Earth had left. "We've made them bleed, but they'll come back stronger," Caven muttered, his hand running through his graying hair. The battle against the Empire had cost them dearly, and now Earth had to prepare for the next wave. "Admiral, we've received a transmission from the Galactic Council," said Lieutenant Jara, her voice tense. "They're demanding our surrender." Caven leaned forward, a look of quiet defiance crossing his face. The Galactic Council had sent their emissaries to humanity in the past, offering terms of peace that were nothing but hollow promises meant to keep Earth under their thumb. This time, their tone was different. They were angry. They think they can break us with threats, Caven said, his voice steady. We won't surrender. Not now. Not ever. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the remnants of the Imperial fleet were recovering, and preparations for a counteroffensive were underway. General Darvok, though humiliated by the defeat, was not a man easily defeated. He had lost an entire flagship and several dozen warships, but his will to conquer the galaxy remained unbroken, and his resentment toward Earth was quickly turning into a burning desire for revenge. In his war room aboard the flagship Vengeance, Darvok paced furiously, his thoughts racing. This is far from over. These humans think they can defy us, but they are gravely mistaken. We will teach them the price of defiance. His officers stood around him, silent, awaiting his orders. Darvok had only one mission now, to crush Earth's fleet and annihilate any hope the humans had for victory. Prepare the fleet for another strike, Darvok ordered. We'll attack their homeworld directly. No more small skirmishes. This ends now. Back on Earth, Admiral Caven was preparing his own countermeasures. He had ordered his fleet to spread out, hiding in the vastness of space, making it difficult for the Empire to pinpoint their exact location. The time for defensive tactics was over. Earth needed to go on the offensive. Caven knew they could never let the Empire regroup long enough to strike again. The Empire won't rest, Caven said, looking out across the bridge of the Sentinel. They'll come for us with everything they have. And we need to be ready. On Earth's home planet, the people were beginning to feel the weight of the war. The news reports showed footage of the battle, and though Earth had scored a hard-won victory, the citizens knew it wasn't over. The thought of the Empire's relentless forces returning to their doorsteps sent waves of anxiety through the populace. But there was also an undercurrent of hope. If humanity could win one battle, surely they could win another. Surely, Earth's strength wasn't just in their fleet, it was in their spirit. Earth's leaders called for unity, rallying the population. Every man, woman, and child understood that they were now fighting not just for their survival, but for the future of their world. They rallied around their fleet, knowing that their future depended on the courage of those who fought in the stars. The next few days were a blur of preparations. Earth's military was pushed to its limits as they scrambled to rebuild what they had lost and fortify their defenses. Caven knew that the Empire would not hesitate to strike the moment they were ready, and Earth needed to be prepared for anything. On the front lines, Captain Lyra stood beside her officers on the Eagle's Wrath. The crew was tired, battle-worn, but their determination had only grown stronger. They had tasted victory, and it only fueled their resolve to keep fighting. "We're not done yet," Lyra said, her voice strong. "When the Empire comes again, we're going to be ready for them. We fight, not because we have to, but because we want to. We fight for Earth. We fight for humanity's future." As the days passed, the Empire's movements grew more erratic. It was clear they were preparing for another large-scale assault. But this time, Earth's fleet wasn't simply defending. They were preparing to strike back with everything they had. Every piece of technology, every piece of knowledge Earth had gained in the war, was now at their disposal. And they weren't just fighting for their survival. They were fighting for the very freedom of their species. The stage was set for the final confrontation. The Empire's forces were gathering, and Earth was ready. The question remained, would the Empire's thirst for vengeance be the end of Earth's fight for freedom? Or would humanity's resilience once again prove that they were a force that could never be defeated? In the coming days, the fate of Earth would be decided. The Empire's attack was inevitable, but this time, the humans would be ready. They would no longer be the underdogs. They would be the ones making the first strike, and the Empire, for the first time, would face the full might of Earth's wrath. The final stand. The silence of space was broken by the steady hum of Earth's fleet, positioned in the shadows of distant asteroids. Admiral Caven stood at the center of his bridge, a calm yet determined expression on his face. The coming battle would be the final test for humanity. Earth's fleet was now stronger than ever, united in purpose and ready to face the Empire one last time. This is it, Kevin thought, his gaze scanning the array of ships on the tactical screen. One final push, and we either end the Empire's reign or fall under its shadow forever. Lieutenant Jara entered the command room with urgency. "Admiral, we've spotted Imperial ships on the horizon. It looks like the Empire has mobilized everything they have left. The full fleet is coming." Kevin's grip tightened on the armrest of his chair. The time for strategy was over. Earth's forces had prepared as much as they could, and now it was all about execution. "Prepare the fleet," Kevin ordered. "We're going to hit them hard. No more holding back." At the heart of the Imperial fleet, General Darvok stood in the command center of his flagship, the Vengeance. His eyes burned with anger and hatred as he gazed upon the images of Earth's forces. The losses they had suffered in the previous battles had only made him more determined to crush humanity once and for all. "The humans will pay for their defiance," Darvok muttered, pacing across the room. "Their fleet may have surprised us once, but this time, we will break them." He turned to his officers, his voice filled with cold fury. "Prepare to engage the humans. We're going to end this today." As the Imperial fleet advanced toward Earth's position, both sides knew that this would be no ordinary battle. It would determine the fate of humanity, and neither side was prepared to back down. The battle lines were drawn, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath in anticipation. Captain Lyra stood on the bridge of the Eagle's Wrath, watching the distant Imperial ships grow larger on the view screen. Her crew had faced impossible odds before, but this time the stakes were higher. Humanity's very existence hung in the balance. She turned to her officers. "This is it, people. We fight for Earth, we fight for our families, and we fight for everything we believe in. Keep your heads cool, your aim true, and your hearts full of courage. Today, we make history." The first salvo of the battle came from the Imperial fleet, a barrage of plasma weapons lighting up the vastness of space. Earth's ships quickly retaliated, their weapons unleashing a storm of firepower that shook the battlefield. The two fleets collided in a dazzling display of energy and fire. The battle raged on, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Earth's fleet, though smaller in number, fought with a tenacity that caught the Empire off guard. Every ship was a symbol of humanity's refusal to bow down. Their tactics, once untested, proved effective in the chaos of the battle. The Empire's superior technology was no match for Earth's creativity and resourcefulness. As the conflict intensified, Kevin's voice rang out over the comms. "Hold the line. We can't let them push us back." The Imperial ships were beginning to falter, their once pristine formations breaking apart as Earth's fleet tore into their ranks. But even as victory seemed within reach, Kevin knew that this battle was far from won. The Empire still had vast reserves of ships, and General Darvok had never been one to give up easily. "We need to finish this," Kevin said, his voice resolute. "Target their flagship. If we take out the Vengeance, we'll cripple their command structure." With precision and speed, Earth's fleet locked onto the Imperial flagship. The battle became a race against time. Earth's ships moved with coordinated strikes, avoiding the devastating weapons of the Empire while hammering their targets. Finally, after a relentless barrage, the Vengeance's shields flickered and failed. The flagship's hull began to crumble under the force of Earth's attack. General Darvok, aboard the flagship, looked out in horror as his ship was consumed by the firestorm. "No, this can't be happening," he screamed. But it was too late. The flagship was destroyed, and with it, the backbone of the Imperial fleet began to unravel. Earth's forces surged forward, pressing their advantage. The Imperial fleet, now in disarray, attempted to retreat, but Earth's ships pursued them, not willing to let the Empire escape. As the last Imperial ships were either destroyed or driven away, Admiral Kevin's voice echoed through the comms once more. "We've won. Earth is free." Cheers erupted on Earth's ships and across the planet. Humanity had done the impossible. they had defeated the mighty Galactic Empire. The war was over, and Earth had emerged victorious. Back on Earth's surface, people gathered in the streets, celebrating the triumph of their fleet. The long fight for survival had come to an end, and the hope for a peaceful future was finally within reach. They had proven to the galaxy that humanity was not a species to be underestimated, and that the will of Earth's people could never be broken. But as Earth celebrated, Admiral Caven looked out into the stars. The victory was sweet, but he knew that the universe was vast, and the challenges ahead would never stop. However, for now, Earth had earned a moment of peace, a peace that would last as long as humanity remained vigilant. With the final battle behind them, the galaxy would never forget the humans who had dared to fight back against the most powerful empire in the universe. And as for Earth, they had learned that even in the darkest of times, there was always hope.